I can have all this theory in my head and I can even be right. And still the person I'm speaking with that is directly affected by the things that I'm right about just have no like relevance. To me, that is a sacred moment. That is a sacred moment where you realize there is still limits of even being right. God's existence does not inform how I decide to live my life, because if God didn't exist, I'd live my life in an identical way, in the sense I want everyone to get free, I want their lives to flourish. And so in that regard, I would hope if there is a limitless eternal being who's like pure is good incarnate, if that's really my goal and he can let him judge me. Only God can judge me. Word to Tupac. But like, and if I'm really true in my mission and God is what I think that God is, then it'll be okay.
Welcome to Excavations. Today we have Chris with us. This is a podcast that centers marginalized voices, bodies, ideas. And I really admire Chris's work online because there is this desire to translate pedagogy and to translate the idea of theory that feels to me stuck in the intellectual and academic world that isn't accessible to people. And when we started talking about this podcast, I realized there were a lot of intersection in our thinking that lands us in the same place, but we come at it from different directions. And I think there's interesting Venn diagram right there. But I will ask Chris to introduce himself.
Connie, I'm really excited that you had me on. That's really sweet because I'm thinking the exact same thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Alfonso. My Instagram is Jean Paul Fartre. That's JeanPaul_FARTRE_. I guess just to introduce myself to your audience, I'm a Marxist scholar. I like to think I'm an organizer, but I always want to be better. Abolitionist. I worked in the New York City criminal courts for a long time, trying to get youth offenders out of Rikers Island and non-incarcerative sentences. And now I work in outpatient psychiatric, providing psychiatric medical care for New York City's underprivileged. And outside of that, just organizing projects, trying to create a future where we can all be free. So thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and for your time. I wanted to start, you told me, gave me a hint of you used to be really religious in a weird way. Let's start there. What does that mean? And where does it still linger in the body, even if you're not anymore?
Yeah, I don't know how true this is. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm a big fan of Hegel. My sister refers to it as my autistic hyperfixation. Her words, not mine. But when I told you that I was religious in a weird way, I was raised religious. My parents, went to church. I think my dad was Catholic. My mother was Methodist. But I was like I really took it seriously from a very, very young age. So like, I think about the time Harry Potter came out. I'm like spending my days reading Harry Potter. And then at night, I would read the Bible till I fell asleep till like 2 o'clock in the morning. And like that was maybe 2 to 3 nights a week where I'm just so terrified of going to hell that I'm like, how do I figure out the rules to make sure that I'm operating in the right way? And it was a real, real big fixation of mine. I thought maybe my first major in college was world religions. I just thought if we read and we study and we research, we can figure it out and then we won't be eternally damned.
We had very similar childhoods. That was me. It's like, yeah, okay. So what caused the shift? What broke? What cracked?
So I wasn't sure if I was going to go to college. I bust out. I was from a pretty poor neighborhood and I bust out to a really wealthy one and went to high school out there. And one of my best friend's fathers was kind of like, Chris, you're too smart to not go to college. And I'd never really heard an adult call me smart in that way before, or at least it never really resonated. So when he said that, I kind of, scrambled. My mom helped me a little bit, and we just
mm,
figured out how can I apply to whatever. And I ended up going to Humboldt State for 1 semester, and
mm,
I drop out immediately.
mm,
And then on my way back, I was feeling a little down about myself. It was like not okay to not go to
mm,
college from the high school I went
mm,
to. And so the community that I had developed in high school, I just felt very ashamed. And
mm,
I'm not going to go into too many details, but I started getting into a lot of trouble in this period.
mm,
And I remember when I started getting out of trouble, coming to this realization that God didn't get me into trouble and he also didn't get me out. I did both of those things. And
mm,
so now I'm much more agnostic. I wouldn't say in any way I'm against the idea of religion or spirituality. But there was
mm,
a period where, in order to accept my own responsibility over my own life and both the bad and the good things that happen, I kind of rejected the entire way of looking at the world and really all the previous reasons why I thought the world was the way it was.
mm.
Does that make sense?
It does. That, like, to accept, in order to take your own responsibility, in order to move forward, you needed a material understanding of why you were doing the things you were doing. That sounds like
Exactly.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you start doing illegal things, whether that's partying or messing around with the wrong people. And really, maybe I was the wrong person at the time.
Mm,
But there's a way to look at your life that's so kind of fixated that you're
mhm,
not looking at all of the smaller decisions that you've made that
mm,
make it so you have the opportunity to make some really, really bad decisions.
mm,
And things at a certain point, I think maybe I was like kind of homeless for a couple of weeks and maybe a month or something. And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking about things. And luckily, I had some really powerful people in my life
mm,
that were kind of like, Chris, you got to get this together. Like, what's going on? That I just was like kind of hit over the head with it. And I was like, look, either I
mm,
make the decisions to get out of this and
mm,
I quit blaming other people, quit blaming God, I quit blaming anyone. And I just start,
mm.
doing the small steps today to start retransitioning my own personal future.
The question I want to ask is, do you think God failed you? But that's not the right question to ask. I don't know how to phrase that, but what I'm getting at is you saying that, like, your moral grounding is still Christian ethics, right? And I'm thinking to myself, so many questions. When did you encounter Marx? How did you encounter Marx? Does Marx actually provide an ethics or just a diagnosis for you? And, like, what from Christian morality stuck, even though you were like, oh shit, like, I gotta stop doing this thing where I put everything on God and not hold it in here.
Love that question. I mean, in terms of like the chronology of my life, it's a little bit
Yeah.
further down the line. I needed to
Mm,
mess up a few more times to get to
mm,
Marx because I had read
mm,
him. I was like familiar
mhm,
and I think I liked him. I learned about the Black Panthers and Malcolm X much, much earlier. I'm from Oakland, California. But at the time when I had learned about those people, I really didn't know what Marxism, Leninism was. So to
mm,
me, the Black Panthers just represented Black liberation, which I was all the way
mm,
down for. And it wasn't until later that Marxism became a big piece of how I understood the Panthers. But
mhm,
directly to your question about like when Marx came into the picture, like I said, I was I've always been interested in reading.
mm,
And I think maybe once I finally got it together to go to college for the real long haul, I was reading a lot of philosophy. I maybe could have
mm,
been classified as a philosophy bro to a certain
mm,
extent. But when I got my hands on Hegel, which was when I went to grad school and maybe even a little bit before,
mm,
that's when this childhood experience of
mm,
viciously reading the Bible in order to find out the rules of life kind of
mm,
returned to me. Because
mm,
Hegel is it's very biblical in like kind of its
mm,
aesthetic, I would say.
mhm,
I don't know if your audience is familiar, but he's known as like one of the hardest people to read.
mm,
And I really read him in a biblical way. Like I'd wake up every
mm,
morning, I would read a passage, I'd think about my own life, I'd think about how
mm,
the maestro, what he would say to me, but in a way where the Bible seemed to get more and more mysterious the more I
mhm,
studied.
Mhm.
at least personally. Hegel worked the opposite way. He began
Yeah.
very, very mysterious. And as I learned the terminology, as I learned the concepts, as I continued to read and then reread, kind of like
Mhm.
waves on a beach, you know,
Mm.
it
Mhm.
started to formalize and it actually started to make a lot of sense. And now, at the risk of sounding maybe a little overconfident, I can really
Mhm.
read Hegel the way someone could read a newspaper. Like I'll just
Mhm.
like, and it's
Mhm.
a really, really wonderful experience.
Mm.
So my entry point into serious Marxist philosophy was through Hegel, through CLR James, who loved Hegel.
Mm.
He's a very famous black communist active in America in like the early 20s and 30s. And then like outside of that, I was just like organizing. So
Mm.
I think the first organizing project that I was ever really a part of was I was teaching college courses at San Quentin State Prison.
Mhm.
I taught basic accounting, research writing, a little bit of philosophy, sociology, and then I like would show up for office hours. That was a big thing. And then we
Mm.
eventually organized the first ever academic conference held inside a
Mm.
California prison. So
Mm.
the things I was doing were very, very
Mm.
Marxist, very, very centered on how do we uplift and empower oppressed, marginalized working class communities. And
Mm.
then outside of that, I'm trying to think about like, how do I get the exact right answers? In the same way as the biblical stuff earlier, but just in terms of making the future a world we all want to live in.
Mm. I'm thinking, Hegel says the world moves through these like dialectical stages, right? You go from thesis, antithesis, synthesis towards this full realization of, I don't know, spirit, freedom, self consciousness. There is a direction and a destination for where you're trying to go. And that is structurally rhymes really hard with Christianity, right? Of just this idea of like, we are heading somewhere towards the kingdom of God, towards the second coming. There's this resolution that happens, right? And both of them say, in a way, we are in a broken present, but there's an arc where moving, the history bends towards resolution, right? Like that is the same. There's this, for me, when I hear what you're talking about, I'm like, there's the both of them is not like, do you feel like Marxism or, Hegel has a promise, in quotes, of the future? Is it a call, for me at least? I'll say what I feel. I feel like Marxism's call is, if you can use the word call in here, but call is not like you wait around for deliverance, right? Hence, your like what I'm hearing, this embodied organizing work, it's not you sitting around waiting for second coming, but actually the Bible doesn't really say you wait around for it either. That's not what the Bible says, but people make it, weaponize it like that. And when you deconstruct the like weaponization of scripture, it ends up feeling to me like what I said to you, which was Marxism feels like a very faithful reading of the Gospels, right? Because you are actually organizing for material change. What do you think of all of that talk, in it, around it, through it,
No, I mean,
against it?
I I like that reading of it. I mean, I'm a
Mm.
big fan. Maybe I want to put a pin in this. I want to come back to it later, but I just
Mhm.
real quick, I'm a huge fan of whatever is important in
Mm.
whoever we're talking to's life.
Yeah.
That's the entry point that I want to get to
Mm.
Marxism through.
Mm.
Whether that's Black liberation, whether that's liberation theology, whether that's feminism, whatever it is,
Mm.
abolitionism, whatever's important to you, my belief is
Mm.
not in a sleight of hand way, not in
Yeah.
a like I'm trying to trick you. I just think whatever it is that whoever I'm speaking with believes in, I think that the truest element of that, unless you're a capitalist, fascist, is going to come back around and it's going to
Yeah.
lead to you putting yourself in service, you trying to
Mm.
build a world that's better than the one that you were thrown into, and
Mm.
trying to do it with your fellowship with your people. But to your point, so you're like, does Marxism have this predetermination, right?
Mm.
Is it going somewhere? Hegel does, for sure.
Mm.
Absolutely. You
Mhm.
said that. I agree. Like there is an end and that end is good. And,
Mhm.
everything feeds into that. I never really
Mm.
read this form of like, I don't want to be too dramatic here, but like nihilism in my readings
Mm.
of Hegel. I've heard people read
Mm.
that and I can see it, but
Mhm.
I always thought I won't be able to quote the line, but it's
Mm.
something to the effect of For Hegel, the good is knowing what's right and wanting to do it. It's
Mm,
making the actions, the being of the world and the thought, the
mm,
spirit of the world one thing, right?
mm,
For Marx, I think unfortunately the problem is, and maybe in some ways the good thing if we decide to do it, is that there is no end. It's socialism or it's
mm,
barbarism. You can lose,
mm.
which is why it's so important that we try to win. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for Marx, there's this agency where if we don't do it, if we don't do it together and we don't do it right now, it might never get done. And then
Mm,
we're all, SOL, right?
mhm,
But for Hegel, that's not the case. For Hegel, there is this constant unfolding. The world is a circle that is its own beginning, right? It's
mm.
leading towards something inevitably, and whatever happens was always meant to happen, which in some ways I think can be comforting, but not for me.
Why is it not comforting?
Because I think that we have to do it. We have to, there's
Mm,
something really important about deciding.
mm, mm,
In the same way, like when we opened with like, I had to realize the problems of my life, but all the things worthy of celebration as well are because
mm,
of me and the things that I've done. And also like my life. Like I want to
mm,
give credit to my friends and family and comrades and lovers and whatever, all the people, and even
mhm,
like kind of acquaintances and strangers, all the people that are wrapped up in it. It's not to say, when I say it's because of me, it's not to say that no one else deserves credit to
mm,
my actions, or no one else, blame is not warranted, right? Trauma is
mm,
real. Things happen that
mhm,
are real. But it's just to say that if I'm going to get out of it,
mhm,
I got to make that decision to do it, you know?
mm. No, no, no. I like it. I'm just thinking. I'm thinking, okay, so where does God come in? Like the Christian ethics part. Where does God come in? As in, you said that your agnosticism is motivated by Marxism, which some people might find contradictory. I don't, but I think that's worth elaborating on. But also, is this agnosticism a conclusion or a practice? As in, is it that you feel like I looked at the evidence, I thought about it, I landed on the thing that like I don't know if God exists because my responsibility lies with me and the people I am here with, and there we stop? Or agnosticism as a discipline in which it's like I am going to actively practice not knowing because Marxism gives us the framework that says, you don't start with the metaphysical, you start with the foundations of you in front of you. And so then I'm thinking out loud here. Okay. And
Go
then
ahead.
so your agnosticism isn't just like, I can't figure out if God is real, but it's like, I am training myself to not ask the question because that's not where liberation comes from. It's like a refusal, not a failure to arrive somewhere.
No, I think I'm following you all the way and I'm rocking
Mm,
with you. I'll say one, I think Jesus might be one of the best examples of a militant communist. Like, no,
mm.
no joke. I think, I don't want to be too hokey. I know that I've seen your content. You get into the real nitty gritty, but I'll just say up here, the
Yeah.
idea of teaching a man to fish as opposed to giving a man a fish, right? Like this idea of like helping people help themselves, empowering them to help themselves, freeing people so that they can go on and live fruitful lives. Like these are like core tenets of Christianity, at least the way that it was
Yeah.
taught to me. When I say I'm agnostic,
Mhm.
I have a short answer and maybe a long-winded answer. We'll figure it out. But
Mhm.
the short answer is just to say I'm not concerned. It's not to say that I
Mm.
don't think God is real. It's to
Mhm.
say that if God is real and God is just, right,
Mm.
then I hope he'd rock with whatever I'm doing here on this planet, right? I hope when I get there at the end, like he's going to be like, wow, we looked at the scoreboard. You messed up a few times over here and you did this good. So, you know what? Come on in.
Mhm.
The long winded answer is the same thing that I tell people when I talk to them about Marx and Hegel. Like Hegel
Mm.
is very, very concerned with like the like fundamental processes of reality. Right.
Mhm.
And that's what I found so beautiful about it when I first started digging into it. When people talk about Marx turning Hegel on his head, and obviously Marx himself made the comment, but it's like, I don't know if Marx really thinks that there's like this beginning that's like ontologically pushing us forward into these stages that have to happen, what I
Mm,
can tell you for an absolute fact is that, at
mm,
least in his writing, he's just not concerned with it. It's
mm,
not to say that he has thoughts one way or the other. He might not. But it's
mhm,
to say that what he's using the Hegelian philosophy for is right here, right now, and this is where it can give us like material benefit. So when I think
mm,
about my own religious commitments,
mm,
that's how I view it. It's not to say that God's existence does not inform how I decide to live my life, because if God
mm,
didn't exist, I'd live my life in an identical way, in the
mm,
sense I want everyone to get free. I want their lives to flourish, bear fruit.
mhm,
I
mhm,
want the next generation and the generation after that to have a far easier life than we did.
mm, mm,
And so,
mhm,
in that regard, I would hope if there is a limitless eternal being who's like
mm,
pure, is good incarnate,
mhm.
if that's really my goal and he can let him judge, only God can judge me. Word to Tupac. But like, like that's he'll do it. And if I'm
Mm,
really true in my mission and God is what I think that God is, then
mhm.
it'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question which sounds like I don't agree with you, but I do.
No,
So,
go
but
ahead.
but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I am just I am just curious, which is that the counter argument to Marx is that it reduces human one of the counter arguments is it reduces human experiences to economic relations, right? Which for me, all that is saying is it reduces human experiences to incarnation, put a pin in that. But you know, one can say that it strips life of its transcendent function, right? That it is, if you push it, it's ethics without metaphysics, whatever you want to call it. But is there a ground, do you think, that materialism can't provide? Or like, did God, for me, God chose materialism to provide, right? But like, do you feel the moments where I really admire this idea that I would live the same way whether or not there is a God, which is what Jesus did, which is what the prophets did, but put a pin in that. But it feels like, what is the need? Like you say, you describe it as, I am still landing on Christian ethics, right? Is there a need for the transcendent? Is the transcendent in the moments when you know, meet the people where they are? Because that in itself, to me, when I look at the work that you do, the moments where I identify the sacred, right, is, I feel like I'm like projecting onto you, but I honestly think projection is like the only way we know how to relate to another human. So
Sure.
here we are.
Yeah.
But it's like the place where I identify the sacred in your work is where you are choosing, very much so, Paulo Freire's thing, where it's like the education either liberates or it domesticates. And I am going to live in this moment with you where you're not a passive thing. You said multiple times, I'm like, I want to meet them where they examine their reality, right? So it's like, that to me is a moment of presence and a moment of sacred encounter. But I wonder for you, right? You're describing reading Hegel as like a devotional act. And I'm just like, is there need for the transcendent for you? Where do you encounter it? Do you encounter it?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the annoying scholar in me wants to
Yeah.
just be like, okay, let's define sacred, let's define
Mm-hmm.
transcendent, let's do all this stuff. But I guess I will preface that conversation, if you want to have it, with just what's coming to me when you ask.
Yeah.
I would say anytime I've ever been taught something and
Mm,
anytime I've ever taught something, right? So both ways,
mm, mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing the sacred. And when I say taught, I don't just mean like someone yells something at you and like whatever. I mean like something resonates.
Mm,
Like, I'll give a quick story. I'm in San
mm-hmm.
Quentin. I'm still very, very close to this person. They got out. They
Mm,
were locked up 25 years.
mm,
And, when they got out, it was really wonderful. We were able to move them in with a friend of mine. So we got out of the halfway house and we all became very, very close, family, friends,
mm,
spent holidays together, things like that. But while he was in, I remember I'm telling him all this stuff about like white supremacy, about the prison industrial complex, like how the world has been just designed to cheat
mm,
him, to
mm,
crush him. right?
mm,
He kind of turns to me and he says, Chris, like, you're a smart guy. Like, I agree, but I'm trying to get parole. So will you just like shut up about that? Like, I don't,
mm,
I'm trying to get out of prison.
mm,
That stuff is not going to help. And
mm,
so, like, realizing that I can have all this theory in my head and I can even be right.
mm.
And
Yeah.
still, the person I'm speaking with that is directly affected by the things that I'm right about just have
Mhm.
no like relevance. Like, to
Mm,
me, that is a sacred moment. That
mm,
is a sacred moment where you realize there is still limits of even being right. And so, like,
mm,
I don't wanna just throw a million examples where this has happened, but
mhm,
I guess what I'm saying is that, like, that is, like, deep connection. That is,
mm,
like, deep connection where someone, like, really, like, takes the things in your brain, rearranges them in a way, even the most special things that you would die for, and then they give you another thing, you know? So,
mm,
like, those types of moments, whether I can see it happening in my own educational work or it's happened to me from my mentors, from my comrades, from people that have really set me straight, laced
mhm,
my boots, you know?
mm,
That is, for me, a transcendent moment, a moment where you recognize
mm,
you are not alone. You're like, whatever, like, weird philosophies people wanna, like, hyperfixate on that, like, maybe the whole
mm,
world is a projection of your own brain. No, my
mm,
brain's not it doesn't have the ability to, like, develop scenarios where someone can just hit me in the head with knowledge like that. Knowledge that I'll act on and live on, for the rest of my
mm,
life. So, when I think about it and when I, like, celebrate those moments privately, very, very sacred.
mm,
I don't normally connect it to God, but I definitely
mhm.
connect it to, like, a truth, like a capital G
Yeah,
good, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
does that
Yeah,
answer your
and I
question?
mean yes, yes. I mean, like, it's not I don't need it to be sacred for you, but I feel the sacred when you talk about it to me, which is why I am reflecting it back at you, I think. But I definitely think that, like, like, in that story, right? I went to an all-women's liberal arts school for college, and when I went to divinity school, I forgot that there were men in the world. Genuine forgot. And, I was sitting
Not a
in
bad
this,
way to
like
live.
no, really, really not. I sit in this class that's mandatory, and I was suddenly struck by how many, like, white men are saying things to hear themselves speak, right? And they all sound they're just using the terms, right? Like, I can ask you the same question just like I can say to you, is dialectical materialism like your replacement eschatology, right? Like, I'd say that instead of like rather than saying, "Hey, is the Christian idea of the end the similar structure for you?" But like it was that, right? And then you realize like they really want to hear themselves say dialectical materialism, and they really want to hear themselves say replacement eschatology, and you're just like, "What is happening here?" But what was happening here was like in echoing your moment of just to me, I was seeing theory functioning the same way as doctrine does in the church, right? And it's like this like accessibility is treated as this like dilution thing, right? Like, us making stupid little like Instagram videos about theory is seen as less than, right? But it actually mirrors exactly what happened in Christianity, where the institution like hoarded the text and police interpretation, and it becomes another form of credentialing, gatekeeping, rather than liberation, right? Which is why it's important, I think, like in your story and in what I'm experiencing of just like, yes, we can say dialectal materialism if we want to, but like, what does that mean for people like in going through parole, right? Like, what does that mean? Are we seeing people, or do we need to say this because we like the sound of our voice?
No, this is exactly why I mean, this conversation, I knew it was gonna be so great because I think that that's exactly right. Like, TikTok and Instagram are huge components of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be stupid. Everyone knows
Mm-hmm.
that, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be stupid. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if anything, they have to be state sponsored to a certain degree because of the censorship and things like that. But outside of that, you work around it, whatever. I love what you're saying because it was
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important lessons I ever learned. I mean, my favorite text, It's funny you're talking about dialectical materialism. Notes on Dialectics by C.L.R. James, basically a love letter to Hegel. But
Mm-hmm.
he literally says in this book, he goes, "What
Mm,
is philosophic cognition?
mm,
Is philosophic cognition when we say we are Hegelians, we don't believe in Kant, we believe in dialectical material or dialectical absolute idealism,
mm,
and we commit to this school, and this is correct for all of these dialectical reasons."
mm,
Or is a philosophic cognition when you analyze the world correctly in a
mm,
structure that elicits a either accurate or at least helpful answer. And I think that that's exactly what you're touching on here in this example, where it's like you're saying they like to hear themselves talk. I think that's true. But I also think people get bogged down in the terminology.
mm-hmm.
Like they want to, I mean, I guess you said this, so I'm agreeing all the way, but it's like they want to weaponize this stuff in order to uphold this exclusiveness.
Yeah.
But my belief is like everyone in their heart already knows Marxism. The problem is it's just buried under all these layers. In the same way, I bet you would imagine that most people have learned at least all of the goodness of Christianity at some point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
you would, was that right?
Y-
I don't want to put words in your
Yeah.
mouth.
No, no, I think that's true. Like nobody is really walking around being like, these are new ideas, in our world.
Yeah.
To be a good human and to serve and
Exactly. I mean,
hmm
and I think that one time I was teaching, or it wasn't even teaching. I was working with a coworker who was really, really close to me. He had served 7 years upstate in the feds. And we used to talk just all the time. He told me about his childhood. He told me about his drug dealing before he went in and, his time in prison and then when he got out. And I remember one day after days and days, weeks, maybe even months of just chatting all the time, he goes, "Chris, you're always on this capitalism stuff."
mm,
I knew what that was before I knew the word.
mm,
And that is the experience that I think we all want. We all want to like
mm,
make people recognize because if people say that, they'll carry it with them because they had
mm,
it their whole life.
what did they call it before we gave them the word capitalism?
I don't know, maybe just called it the hood, like,
Mm,
I don't know,
mm.
the man keeping me down. Like, let me think, what did he call it? I
What
don't
is a
wanna
better word for capitalism?
this things are shitty, I guess. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no,
But,
no. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, like because 'cause we're all aware,
yeah,
like, especially when it comes to things like politics or even economics, like, people know when things get more expensive.
yeah,
Like, you go
yeah,
outside, you know that.
yeah.
People know I used to think about this all the time. Like, there was a period where, you know, I think certain elite liberals would kind of look down on the working class and they'd say they don't
Mhm,
care about politics. They're not showing up to the ballots or, this, that, and the third. But the thing is, they do know. They're doing
mhm,
it because they know. They're doing it because it does not matter, right? It
mm,
doesn't matter if
mhm,
we got someone on the left or the right.
mhm,
My life does not change. So why would I show up? Because I
mm,
want to have, you know, someone who's black or a woman or whatever, or someone that like, I don't
yeah,
know, likes gay marriage or like just like
yeah,
very, very superficial to my own life, right?
yeah,
I know that I don't want to like, it is important that we see figures in our lives, role models that resemble us so that we can maybe envision what if.
yeah.
But under a capitalist system, I don't want people to envision themselves as the president, the primary
Mm,
war criminal that, they're all
mhm,
war criminals and they've always been since the first war criminal. And so it's like,
mm,
I guess what I'm trying to say is growing up, but also
mm,
in the jails, in the prisons, in the courts, in public housing, in all the places that I've ever worked in,
mm,
you could say that people don't care about politics, but I think
mm,
more reasonably, they care a lot. They
mm,
just recognize that this high level of politics, right,
mm.
does not affect them one way or the other. And that's a problem with the politicians. That's a problem with the world that we're in. That's not a problem with these people.
When you say, I think about when Jesus says, I was in prison and you did not visit me. Like, and I ask, and I'm throwing this to you because I'm like, I wonder, it's easy for me here to sit here outside and say, God is behind bars, right? Like God puts himself behind bars. What I'm hearing you say is a lot of what I genuinely believe and am willing to die for. And I'm hearing you say these things, but in a different language, right? Of just like, I think that we want a politician as a figurehead because we are used to wanting one God and we're used to wanting one savior. And the savior then holds all the responsibility and all the projections. It's just a lightning rod of meaning that we associate with it and then can then devoid ourselves of our personal responsibility. Who gets elected, right? It's like who gets elected, the power is still among us. And if we don't take that responsibility, it doesn't matter who is in office. And so, like, yes, I can support a politician, I support their policies, but that's not where salvation, quote unquote, lies, right? But I wonder what you think of the idea of God behind bars.
Well, can you open that up a
Yeah.
little bit more to me? Yeah, God
Yeah.
behind bars.
Like the idea that if incarnation is true, right? The idea of the incarnation is true, then God chose to be fully dependent on a bunch of idiots. You know, God chose to be fully dependent to be nourished by people who are completely unreliable, given the Old Testament, right? Like, these are not reliable people. They're very forgetful. They don't remember that they're his God, and they don't remember anything. Right? And so God says, you know, when I was sick, you did not feed me. When I was, you know, like this idea of God is with the most marginalized. And I am perhaps hearing you say we are skirting along it, but where do you encounter, you've named a couple of examples where you have encountered this capital T truth or capital T good through this part of society that they feel so below this, you know, based on what the politicians do, so below the access of politics that they can't change anything from the inside. Where is, I don't know how to ask this without my own language, but my question is, where is God in that? Not
Okay.
like theodicy, so to speak, but like, where do you encounter the
Okay.
incarnational human in there?
I'm trying to think about how I would answer this. There's like an academic way.
Mhm.
I studied in grad school, I studied Black studies, and there's like a
Mhm.
very, very good but very specific example here that I think we could
Mm.
use. I don't know if you're familiar with the term social death,
Mhm.
Orlando Patterson Jr., right?
Mhm.
So, like, social death is a very contentious concept within Black
Yep.
studies
Yep.
because some people think that social death is literal. And
Mm.
then some people think that social, like in the sense that people are literally removed from historic action, from effects on
Yep.
history.
Yep.
Enslaved people, specifically during the antebellum slave period, were removed from history in terms of like
Mm.
how they participated in the flow and development of progress.
Mm.
Some people read social death in that way. My mentors, my advisors taught me a more materialist way where social death is not necessarily a literal or ontological description of people, but
Mm.
instead a description of how terrible, racist, dominating, even pre fascist, but like slave owners saw
Mm.
people, right? So, like,
Mm.
that's a very, very big distinction.
Mhm.
So I don't really, I mean, I care so much that I want to understand the period, but in terms of like what I think about the world and how I would think about the world, I could
Mm.
give two shits what a slave master thinks about another human being. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So if we take the second example in which it's social death is the way that the slave master views enslaved people, then despite the destruction of slavery,
Mhm.
and despite the ways with all the ways that the people with all the resources and all the power and all the political execution and all the militaries, right?
Mm.
Despite all of that, you could not crush the human spirit. You
Mm.
could not crush the ability for
Mm.
these people to participate in history,
Mm.
right? So you tell me God behind bars, I think, yeah, anytime we are we are subjugated to domination, guess what? We
Mm.
still have beauty inside us. We still have a both a legacy but also a history that we project
Mm.
forward. We still have
Mm.
effects on history. Like
Mm.
we could be down, sports metaphor, I guess, but we could be down 40 points in in
Mhm.
the final quarter and like guess what? I'd still think we could win. And I'm not going to quit until we lose. So
Mm.
me, that could be sacred. That could be a divinity, even in like the darkest night, you know? And I think theoretically, and at least in the things that I've come up with or come across It's pretty consistent. Definitely in Marxism.
You know, what is really interesting about your story versus mine is that I spend a part of my childhood in communist China, right?
Okay.
Where Marxism is a religion, right? It's not Marxism as critique, it's Marxism as legitimization, right? It's the story the state tells about itself to justify its own authority, right? It's very much like you get the trappings of religion without the liberatory content, right? You have the orthodoxy, you have the correct Marxist thought you need to profess, you have the liturgy, you have like rituals, political like recitations, you have slogans, you have heresy, you have, being on the wrong side of the party, line, and you have saints, you have Mao, right? You have scripture, you have the little red book and all the things on the wall, and you get everything that like institutional religion eventually produces, which to me is like the gap between what is professed and what is practiced. You get this, people mouth the words because the words are required, our Father who art in heaven, and then but the words don't describe their lived reality. And I was surprised and then immediately not so surprised by Marxism as a reading of Christianity, because it feels at the core idea that the thing that I had to deconstruct was that was a religion, right? Like that was really practiced as religion, and that's what happens to Christianity under empire too. And I wonder, because you also have this devotion to it, right? And it's a devotional practice, and I understand that, and I'm not saying those two are the same things. I'm not saying
Sure.
that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it feels, I like the tension. I like the tension of these paths, and I wonder what you think about all of that.
Sure. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess, are you asking me specifically about like actually existing socialism or projects that either are or claim to be communist? Is that the question? Or is the question about like how we reconcile some of the tragedies, mistakes of communist and Marxist lineages? Like
Mm,
how do you envision the question?
it's more like you're right that I don't have a question. I'm more saying that it's a curiosity, I think, of like someone who grew up inside the failure of Marxism as religion, and then encountered Christianity and found something real in Christianity, but in a way kept its Marxism, right? And I think I wonder, is there like, if there is tension in your practice, where is it? And how does it
Yeah.
manifest?
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think the atrocities of Marxism feels like it's a it's a you can use anything to justify pretty much anything that you want in a way.
Well, I think that this is actually, I'm going to rearrange this just for 1 second. I
Yes.
recently read a conversation between Fidel Castro
Mm,
and I'm going to butcher his name, so please forgive me, but I think it's Frei Beto.
mm,
And he is a church, I don't know if church figure is the right terminology, but he was in the church and he's kind of
mm,
talking to Castro about liberation theology,
mhm,
right? And he kind of upfront, he says, Fidel, like, why are the communists so harsh about religion? The people love it. Like,
mm,
you're missing out on a huge segment of people
mm,
because you guys are so like strict about being atheists. And Castro says, if we are losing out on people, we're losing
mm,
out on the ability to recruit people because what you're saying is true, then we are doing a strategic disservice to our movement, right? That's the first thing he says. But then he goes into a long history, a long
mm,
material history of how the church was used to subjugate these very people, or at least their ancestors, right?
mhm,
To the point in which they felt like they had to be recruited using liberation theology. And so, I guess to answer your question about like the tensions between, you know, a Marxist reality or realities and a Marxist ethic or a Marxist ideal,
mm,
it's to say that all of these frameworks and all of these ideologies have
mm,
histories that are conflicted, right?
mm,
That are, I mean, Hegel will teach us and Marx will take this on that the world is a contradiction and there is
mhm,
no exception to that.
mm,
Everything exists in a tension.
mm,
And it's only when we decide to fit these things together and really see it for what it is that we recognize these things are constantly evolving, they're constantly developing.
mm,
If you take and I think Marxist lexicon, they say if, you take a one-sided view as opposed to
mm,
the dialectical or many-sided, whatever, it's like a
mhm,
little bit condescending. But if you take a snapshot and then
mhm.
say this is what it is, then
Yeah.
of course you're going to be able to use that to legitimize or support any type of interpretation you want to come up with.
Mhm,
So I think that on like a world historic level,
mm,
both in Mao's China, in Castro's Cuba,
mm,
in projects today that people do and do not support,
mm,
I think that everything has its place within this larger historical movement.
mm,
And I think that it's our jobs to utilize those histories towards building a world founded on collective freedom. And then I guess personally, it's
mm,
the tension of both regretting my past mistakes and
mm,
also deciding to learn from them and
mm,
recognizing that if I don't learn from them, then those mistakes stay regrets.
mm,
So it's like in the same way that we've all committed maybe personal tragedies, maybe
mm,
personal mistakes that were horrific that we feel like, oh, this is not who we are or whatever, right?
mm,
Everyone's done that.
mm,
You either decide to learn from those moments and then
mhm,
live with them. It's not that you throw them away. You actually turn them into something that you can use to inform your life, and then you live with them
mm,
forever, right? You
mm,
embrace these moments. And so,
mhm.
like, I hope I'm not being too diplomatic, but that's the way
No,
that
no,
I
no.
view both a Marxist and communist history as well
Mhm.
as my own personal growth.
Was Christianity a mistake for
No.
you?
I
No.
mean, it was a mistake in the sense that, like, when I'm the kid and
Mhm.
like, I just remember one time I'm in Sunday school and the person is like teaching me and they're like, you can't have any non-Christian friends. And I'm a
Yeah,
little kid, right? And
yeah.
I'm almost crying because my best friend at the time was like I don't know, he was a little bit of a jerk, but he was like a self-professed atheist. And I remember being
Mm,
really bent out of shape about it because I'm like, my God doesn't want me to be best friends with my childhood best friend. Dang, what do I
mm,
do?
mm.
And so, like, in those kind of silly regards, like, because I don't think a person that says that actually takes their own religion seriously. I
Yeah,
don't think they could. In
yeah.
the same way that I don't think that if you really believe that your God is a God of love, I don't
Mm,
know how you could use your religion to justify harming people,
mhm.
stripping away people's rights, like,
Yeah,
especially if it's upholding capital. Like,
yeah,
it's too on the nose.
yeah. Too clear what your God is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if I think Christianity is a mistake for me? No. Would I have wished I had been introduced to Christianity by people maybe like you, like
Mm,
Colton Barnaby or something,
mhm,
right? Like in like these fully developed forms where
mm,
someone is going to be really honest about like kind of some of the sticky parts, but
mhm,
also kind of help you see some of the good parts. Yeah,
mhm.
that would be wonderful. But that wasn't the world I was born into. I was born
Yeah,
into a world of hell and damnation.
yeah. Do you still fear hell? Or are we in it now?
I think I'm too concerned with my
Mm,
projects to
mm,
have any time to
mm,
think about hell anymore. I used to think about it a
mm,
lot
mm,
even after what the sad part is I was terrified of hell way after I lost God in that period.
mm, mm.
The fear of hell stuck around.
Yeah, yeah.
But now I just don't think about it because it's like, you know, I just want to be of service.
Mm,
So you just like think about the stuff you got going on. No
mm.
time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think, I mean, hell is a construct, et cetera, but there's the fear of a good image is palpable, like a fear of the good image sticks. Where do you see your work going? What excites you about the work that you're doing now? How do you feel like it's what would young Chris think about all of this now?
I think he'd be a little surprised maybe. I don't know.
Mm,
Here's what I'll tell you.
mm,
There's an organization out there called No Brooklyn Jails.
mm,
They're doing really incredible work. They're trying to stop the construction of a $3 billion jail developed in downtown Brooklyn. They're calling it the woke jail because it's
Mm.
supposed to have trauma informed architecture. There's supposed to be a community center on the bottom level in a mall or something. And it's really, really
A
disgusting.
mall?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really gross. And obviously the reality is that more prisons, more jails, more cops do not make our communities safer. And
Mhm.
so we want to reorient this project. We don't
Mm.
want it to exist. We
Mm.
want to spend that money on literally anything else. And hopefully
Mm.
we can get smart people involved that really, really, and there probably already is, but I just don't know, but like that know what to do with that money. But we know for sure that we don't want a jail there. Those
Mm.
people are absolutely incredible. I'm
Mm.
excited about that project happening now. I have personal projects with education,
Mm.
trying to create this like safe space. I used to think that term was kind of lame, but it's so real. People
Mhm.
need a safe place to mess up. And
Mm.
I always say you got to risk being wrong to get right. And I want people to be able to kind of swim around in hard theory and recognize it's not that scary.
Mm.
As long as someone that's teaching you, to your example earlier, does not care about proving how smart they are.
Yeah.
If it's more important that you get it, then someone will explain something simply and let you kind of mess around with the big words and whatever. So I really am interested in developing educational spaces where people feel comfortable to kind of tackle
Mm.
these big ideas, but also hold themselves accountable to, I keep using this word, I keep using fascism, I keep using institution, I keep
Mm.
using Marxism or
Mm.
whatever, right?
Mm. Mhm.
False consciousness, whatever the term is. Do you really know what that means?
Mhm.
Ask yourself. I keep using it. I keep blaming the state of the world on X, Y, and Z. Do I really know what that means? Or
Mm.
am I participating in the same action? So
Mm.
I'm doing some educational spaces soon that are trying to kind of both teach people the content itself, but also embody those kinds of values. And then just keep staying committed. It's
Mm.
a what do they say? It's a marathon, you know?
Yeah.
So you just keep trying to push, push, push and commit more and more and more.
Mm. Is there rest in your practice?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
I don't know, like, yeah, anytime you get to hang out with friends, anytime you get to
Mhm.
chop it up on the phone, get to go out to dinner,
Mm.
watch a movie,
Mhm.
see someone special, like,
Mhm.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's unfortunate, it's just the reality that all the people in my life,
Mm.
for the best and for sometimes the most frustrating, are committed to those same things. So we're always talking about
Mm.
politics, we're always talking about
Mm.
we're always talking about how we can build a better world, and, everyone in my life inspires me so much to try more and try harder.
Mm. How does if people are listening and want to help with this project or stopping this prison from getting built, what is something that they can do, and like how do people get involved with something like this with who have the heart to help?
Totally. The Instagram page is No Brooklyn Jail. They have all the information. They can train you on how
Mm.
to participate. They really, really know what they're doing. They're so wonderful. And it's just about here's the real thing though. This is the
Mm.
bit, as my friend always says.
Mm.
We think that we have to have these perfect ideas.
Mm.
And then we can participate. Then we know the right organization. Then we know the right project. Then
Mhm.
the right people will like us and we'll get
Mm.
to have the good role, right?
Mm.
That's not the way it works. The most important thing that anyone can bring to any organizing project
Mm.
is a thing that they already got, which is showing up consistently, trying to be helpful. And
Mm.
guess what? If you do that,
Mm.
eventually someone's going to be like, well, what do you think about this? And
Mm.
you take care of that. And
Mm.
it's the showing up, that's when you're learning. That's when you're de
Mm.
that's when you're getting the right ideas. That's when you're recognizing this is for me or this isn't for me. You don't make the
Mm.
like, you don't learn to swim in the library. You learn to swim in water, you know?
Learn by doing, learn by failing, learn by committing.
And obviously reading the whole
Yeah.
time, but,
I want to ask a question that sounds really cheesy.
I love
How
some
do you
cheese.
how do you keep the faith? Massive quotes. I hate myself for asking this question, but how do
No,
you
no, no, no.
keep the faith, right? Like how do you keep the faith in a secular world? What keeps you going?
Here's what I'll say.
Mm.
I don't know if it'll be a state or a nation or a people or whatever,
Mm,
but there will be a future because
mhm,
we will win.
mhm,
And I think about every single one of those people every day. And I think
mm,
I want them to have the easiest life that they could ever have. And that life is dependent on whatever I decide to give today. You know,
mm,
a
mm,
friend of mine, and this is all personal, but it's kind of like a larger version of this. He
mhm.
said, we are the parents of our future selves.
Yep.
So whatever you decide to do today is what you're going to be given,
Mhm,
in the future. And that's how I think about it. I think that like, man, like I meet so many people that I absolutely adore and love. And
mm,
if there's going to be more people in the future, just like humans multiplying, then that means that if I was alive then there'd be even more people that I adored and loved. So I
mm.
better I better give now. Take care of that.
I think of it reminds me of this Jungian idea of, like, becoming an ancestor. And for like becoming your ancestor, right? And then there's this book about grief called The Wild Edge of Sorrow, and it talks about, you know, the practice of becoming an ancestor. And for a lot of people with trauma, I'm thinking about the people that you work with, incarcerated folks, and just me with a shitload of trauma. But like, the word future is really difficult. The word future is a foreign word to me. I don't quite know what it means because it has been dictated to me what that means. So it's fascinating to think of, like living for me what I'm understanding, what I'm learning, the capital T truth in this moment is of like, if I am to become my own ancestor, which is the parent, right? But even if you don't have children, you're becoming an ancestor of the world. And to live for people who don't know what the word future means or cannot imagine faith, right? Faith has lost all its meaning because of Christianity or just living under this fucked up
Sure.
world. Like
Yeah.
when faith and future feel so difficult, perhaps the word to pick up is this idea of parenting, as this idea of becoming ancestor, where you don't need to know. You don't need to know if we are going to win. Another perspective, perhaps, on this, that you don't need to know what it might look like, and that you will keep becoming this figure, parent, ancestor, however you shape it, right? And that, like, in actuality, I'm speaking to myself right now, but just
No, I love it.
that not knowing is where the sacred lives, because we are trying to define the sacred all the fucking time, right? We're trying to make it a thing. Like, if there's anything I learned from divinity school is that we don't know what the word religion means. We also don't know what the word God means. We don't know what anything means, like, but you can have 10,000 definitions, but like, the idea of letting it remain unknown feels to me at this point in my life, at least, the most honest thing of being with myself, of like, where we started, of like, is what I'm offering, is that meeting the person, right? And for me, that meeting me right now is knowing that becoming an ancestor doesn't have to describe the world, and that actually lets me, quote unquote, keep the faith. Keep the faith is so icky, but here we
I
are.
like it. I like keeping the faith. I don't know. So here's the thing. I love cheese. I think like the separation between, and this is not an accusation at you. I'm not throwing
Mhm.
this your way, but the difference between someone being cheesy and slick is just how they sell it, So, because I've heard some stuff that's really, really cheesy, and then but you hear it from the right person at the right time, and you're like, oof, what? Dang.
Mm.
So keep the faith is right. We should and we need to.
Where does it hurt the most right now? Where do things hurt the most? Where is your heart most tender?
Um, you know, I got some people I love in my personal life that are very frustrating in a great
Mm.
way.
Mm.
But I guess what I mean to say is, where does it hurt the most? We have to keep giving. We have to keep moving. We got to
Mm.
keep building forward more and more. And it just always seems like there's not enough time for everything to give everything the time and the effort that it deserves. And then it also seems like sometimes there's this big weight or this big like satchel that you're carrying. And
Mm.
as you keep pushing forward, you keep throwing a little extra in there and then it gets bigger as you have to keep pushing further.
Mm,
I'm being really abstract, but that's the tension, I think, is that,
mm,
like, the more committed we get to these projects, to the projects of building a better future, the projects of becoming someone said this to me yesterday because it's, like,
mm,
70 degrees here in New York, but I
mm,
was like, "Damn, it's hot." He goes, "Yeah, you better get right with God," right? So, if if that's our mission, getting right with God, or it's
mm,
building this better future, you
mm,
know that you gotta push forward more now. You
mm,
gotta do it now, right? And
mm,
if you don't do it now, maybe you'll never do it. And
mm,
so, like, at least that's the mentality that I have. And so I think that's the toughest thing is that, like,
mm,
the better or more committed or more engaged or more expansive I become, the less time I have for each one individual thing. And the more I feel like I have to keep going. So it's like, it's a
yeah.
time
It's
bomb.
yeah. Mm. What does receiving look like in the philosophies that you work with? How do you receive? Is there a philosophy for receiving? Because I come from I'm hearing I agree with you. I'm like, yes, man, like I'm on board. And I find, I think earlier in this podcast you said something that was like people really said I don't remember how you phrase it, but it led me to thinking of this idea of how little in scripture we are praised by God, right? That we learn to receive goodness other than just like you were created and you're good. You're good job. I did good job, but like how do we receive? I think both in Christianity and from like I can't immediately pick up from Marxism, from Hegel, where the idea of receiving comes in. What do you think of that?
Where do I receive? I will tell you, I receive all the time. I mean,
Mm,
it's because it's not one or the other. That's not the way that I envision it. I can tell you a work example. This happened today.
mm,
I got a client, a patient, I don't know, whatever you want to call him.
mm,
He's got schizophrenia.
mhm,
And when I first met him, he had just gotten out of rehab for crack cocaine.
mm,
Then he got hospitalized very soon after that. I've known him about a year,
mm,
for having a psychotic episode.
mm,
And I put the work in. I met him at the hospital. I talked with him. I was with him while he's like freaking out and telling me all of these numbers and secrets and mind's eye and spiritual warfare, whatever. And I've been with him while he's done that a lot. And I also perform case management for him. We also got him his ID. We got him food stamps. I mediated problems between him and his roommate that he has through supportive housing. And so now when I'm talking to him, right, I don't have to be so careful because that's my guy and I'm his
mm,
guy, right?
mm,
So I can be like, hey, I'm not going to use names, but
mm,
hey, guy, when you're having these spiritual warfare fits, and this is how I'm saying it to him, right? He's a big guy. What do you want me to do as a person
mm,
that loves you? As a
mm,
person that loves you and cares about you, doesn't want
mm.
you, talking to yourself around all these white people. Like, what do you want me to do? I don't want them to lock you up. I don't want them to, right?
Yeah.
And he can tell me in his own language straight up,
Mm,
like what he thinks he wants, which is he told me, he goes, "Chris, you gotta let it ride through." Right?
mm,
Like,
mm,
that's how he said it. So it's like, because of all the work I get to receive in this moment where I'm not at work in this one moment, even though it's so important to my job. I just get to
mm,
talk to my guy like he's a regular person because we
mm,
put the work in, right? We developed that.
mm,
It's the same thing with close friends of mine. Same
mm,
thing with partners, same thing with
mm,
whatever. Is like the more work that we put in, we get to have these moments where it's like, damn, it's all coming together. Hegel will call
mm,
it's like divine providence. That's the
mm,
language he uses for it. He's like,
mm,
as the world develops, we got no idea what's going on. And then
mm,
something happens, and you're like, oh my God, every single thing needed to happen for this to happen.
mm,
And he's like, that's those two things are happening, this like
mhm,
explosion of chaos as well as the order
mm,
simultaneously all the time, not one than the other.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's I mean, I know it sounds like I'm like dodging your question, but I
No.
swear I'm not. Like it's like that's really how I feel. It's like so much service, so much work, but it's also like there's never a moment where I'm not receiving.
Mhm.
That's really how I feel about it.
Mm. I love how divine this practice is for you. I am sorry if I'm using these words,
No,
but it
go
feels
ahead. Go
it
ahead.
feels
Yeah.
so it feels right? Like I'm thinking like this is a moment right now that feeds me. And
Yeah.
this is a moment in which I'm receiving. Yes, I'm giving, I'm speaking on a thing that it's going to be edited, etc. But what I'm hearing, divine providence, means then is noticing the moments when you're at work, the moments when at work your work stops being work, and that is what keeps you going.
Exactly. It's just like
Hmm.
seeing it come together and seeing like a moment where like not only do you see all the past efforts dissolving into something that's happening and real and beneficial,
Mm,
but also you're like, my guy's got a moment of peace,
mm,
right? Like it's not just me, it's our shared moment. It's not just me, it's
mm,
also my man who I've been working with for so long, who was addicted to crack cocaine, who we could never find, who I had to hunt in the streets of New York to find him and bring him in and
mm,
make sure that he was showing up. Like I'm seeing in this moment, obviously I'm Asian, right? I'm
mm,
Bruce Lee, I'm Jackie Chan, right? Like, no, that's what they call me, but like they call me that on the island. Bruce Lee. Anyway, but I'm seeing him and I'm being upfront with this man and I'm talking to him, right? This guy was
mm,
born in Harlem, Harlem, Harlem.
mm,
And I'm talking crazy to him, kinda. I'm like, yo,
mm,
you're talking to yourself sometimes, man. I gotta check you. What's going on?
mm,
What do you want me to do? Like, right?
mm,
And I'm seeing him be able to take that and there's
mm,
no like animosity. He's hearing it like
mm,
we are friends because we are.
mm.
Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, and
Yeah.
I don't wanna be like, obviously there needs to be forms of professionalism and things like that, but I just mean to say that, like, there's genuine care that exists,
Mhm.
and then we both get to experience this moment of ease,
Mhm.
right?
Mm. Mm. Truth, care,
Joy.
joy. Yeah. Truth, care, joy, and ease. I feel like that's a good landing place.
Yeah. Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah, me too. I had a lot of fun.
Is there any projects you want to tell our audience where they can participate in what you're doing directly? I know you are thinking of teaching a class. I saw it in your stories today.
Yeah.
But tell us all about that if they want to follow your work.
Please. John Paul underscore Fartre underscore JEANPAUL underscore FARTRE underscore. I'm hoping either late March, early April, 4 weeks, 4 chapters of Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire, maybe one of the greatest Marxist educational thinkers, like the 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't know. Just like so incredible, so loving. And, talking about the historic vocation of us to become more fully human. I'll plug
Mm,
this I'll really quote Paulo Freire right now.
please do.
We are incompleted beings,
Mm,
conscious of our incompletion. That's what it means to be human, you know?
mm,
And so,
mm,
like, and another way to say that is we are always in the mode of becoming, you know?
mhm,
You're always growing, you're always moving forward, you're always progressing, even if it feels like it's a step back.
mm,
So, we're going to go over that one session a week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
mm.
I promise, promise, promise it's a safe environment. You don't have to have any experience or you have a lot of experience, and we're going to find a place for all of you guys.
And this is a free class.
Free class, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
If you're listening, no, I have no idea why you're not going there, but yes, please join free a free
yeah,
class. Okay.
free class.
Free class, free instruction, truth, care, ease, joy.
Yeah, we're gonna have all those. That's 4 too, right there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for today.
Thank you, Connie. This was so much fun.